all the way up until June is the opportunity to really build the roster in terms of playing opportunities and development. And we want to use both the WNT and the under-23 program to develop about 50 players, whichever level. So it's one thing watching players train in January, especially young players that are coming in, but to see them in competition is what I want to do. So we're going to be experimenting a little with that, but hopefully get the right blend of experience around them so that they can succeed.
Sarah, as Sarah mentioned, you had such a short time before the Olympics, 10 games, 75 days. Now you've got 2.5 years. When you're talking to the group, Emma, there's no World Championship, of course, until 2027. What do you say to them to keep them in it, in the present, in the moment, so that every training session, as you've said, you don't have that many, it's going to come quickly, matters?
Well, it starts with me and my staff team first. And the importance of development is exactly that. It's what you do for the 22 hours you're off the field. It's what you do in between international camps at your club level. All of those things matter, and it's so competitive. Like, I was just watching that game with Japan and Australia and looking at the quality of Japan and how so many of them players are playing in top teams, club teams. The competition's growing around the world, so we have to make sure we value the full calendar year in what we do both on and off the field.
You mentioned something really interesting, that you thought it took about 6 camps for players to really feel comfortable in the environment. What does it look like when you're like, the players finally settled, they're adapting to what we're trying to get them to do?
Do you know what? That's a really great question, and I could probably use myself as an example of that. You get used to the cadence of things, and when you're being overwhelmed with different information, it could be something as simple as, here's your different kit, here's times of breakfast, whatever, your routines change. So when people get familiar with the routines here, I think they settle a little. And also, just you have to build relationships, especially for the introverts. You know, there's players that have only been here a few camps, they don't say too much. It takes a little bit of time off the field to get some of that, and you just see some of their interactions in a more natural, authentic way with about half a dozen camps. That's what I noticed.
You touched on this a little bit, but you're missing obviously some very key players in this camp. What's the mindset going into this camp, but then also in this tournament, but also the expectations for this specific game against Colombia?
Well, I always focus on the things that we can control. So the players that are not here, of course, is a huge loss, but it's also a huge opportunity for everyone else. That's the first thing. And the second is that I want to see us improving. There is a danger with so many changes. A lot of people will try to prove themselves, and my message to them is we want to improve. So focus on understanding what it is we want you to do, play within the team. I don't want us to go into individual mode. And most importantly, when it gets a little choppy, because it will be, because watching Japan and watching how played in they are together, that won't be the case for us. So what do we look like when it isn't going quite well? These are the learnings I will be able to pick up.
At a camp this time of year, Emma, explain the challenges of, you've got like a Lindsay Heaps, formerly Haran, that's in mid-season form, and then you've got other folks out on this pitch tonight that are just working their way back because of the NWSL. I mean, there is a balance there of where these players are at right now.
Yeah, I mean, we've got some players that haven't played a game since the last weekend in October. So that's a long time. So so like Japan, for example, a lot of those players play in England, so they are very much in the thick of their season. And yes, our players are fit, they're fresh, that's for sure. We're not on the back end of the season, but sometimes you guys know this, it's just getting your first touch right, getting your first pass right. It's the feel of things, doesn't feel where players want it to be. But this is about improving, this is about developing, and this is the time to do it. I don't want to be doing this 6 months for a major tournament. I want to do it now.
One thing struck me when you talked about the young players coming in, and that there's, people that are very introverted, and it occurred to you, were you ever an introvert? your first camp, were you ever introverted?
I would like to think I was, but I don't think so. You don't get rowdy fowdy nicknames because you're the quiet kid in the corner. Sometimes I try and be the